What's going on? We're not even making a tire episode.
Yeah, but they're here.
We're making a lift episode. We're about to lift this thing with remote reservoir shocks after installing 33-inch clocks. What's that? You need some help?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's get this episode going. You have to lift the leg.
And here we go.
Right. That's right. We on episode 15, ladies and gentlemen, and on this week's episode, we are installing
A Skyjacker 2.5-inch lift kit with reservoir shocks, a steering stabilizer, and sway bar quick disconnects.
nice.
As you know, we installed these 33-inch tires without a lift kit, and they have been, just like always, we need extra clearance, so that is why we are going with this lift kit. We have never installed reservoir shocks, and we are so excited to report back to you the kind of ride they provide, and we want to compare them to all the different types of shocks that we have installed in the past.
Now, these are affordable just like all of the other products by Skyjacker. We love the products by Skyjacker. We've used them in the past on our other Jeeps, and we can't wait to get our hands on these babies.
Now, it's actually really funny. I haven't read about installing a lift kit on the TJ in quite some time. It's pretty cool that I get to reference my own video when we installed a 4-inch lift kit on the TJ. It was actually like 4.5, 5-inch lift kit because they're dual rate and very generous. Now, why don't we go ahead and unbox everything, lay everything out, and walk you through how to make this install work.
Now, for those of you just tuning in, my name is Aline, and I drive that JKU over there.
You just hoping I'm gonna edit it in somehow?
You will. I know you. I have faith in you. And this is Greg, and he drives every other Jeep in the household.
So that makes 4 Jeeps total. 3 of the TJs, all stick shift, all better than the JK.
Okay, there we go, there we go. And if you haven't tuned in for this series on this TJ, we started from absolutely nothing. Bare bones, dirty, disgusting, and it looks like a monster already, and we can't wait to continue that process.
Let's do it. Let's get everything organized for you. As always, we're gonna just use some simple hand tools. We have this air tool over there. We have a bunch of jack stands, and we have our tool set as well as our spring compressors. The links for everything in this video will be in el descripción.
Okay, you can just speak a different language. Let's get unboxing. Yay!
Let's do it. All right. What do we got there? We got
Steering stabilizer.
our steering stabilization.
Alright, we're just speaking different languages today.
It's called made up language.
Alright.
And that is our skid plate drop kit so that we don't have to install a slip yoke eliminator as well as a DC rear drive shaft. We are going to forego that step because this TJ has been our budget TJ. We did those steps on our Rubicon, but we're foregoing it for now. Let's see what else we got.
You're making all this noise. Now, we did mention that we've worked with Skyjacker in the past, and if you didn't know, they're actually a family-owned company. They are a family that started this business, and they're honestly incredible people. We love to support companies that are family-owned. We've worked with them before, and their customer service is amazing.
Hey, how do I get one of those sweaters you're wearing with our logo on it?
Well, you could just check out the shop in our comment section below, in our description below, and check out our merch because it's cute.
I love it. Let's do it.
I'm gonna spring into action.
Wow, that's pretty cheesy.
Get out of here. Ah, here they are.
Wow. What are your thoughts?
These are gnarly.
I love comparing the old to the new, so we'll do that in a bit. Those look like the rears to me. These are the dual rate springs, which are amazing. They provide 2 different spring rates. We've had a similar system on our TJ Rubicon for nearly 2 years now, and we are super happy with the way they perform both on and off-road. So we wanted to get dual rate springs for this one as well. We're just gonna go ahead and put the quick disconnects right over there. That's the steering stabilizer and that's the transfer case drop kit. We're gonna put those all aside, but don't worry, we're gonna get to all of those by the end of the video. We love seeing companies that support Jesus, so this is an added bonus. There's actually that decal on there that says now your Jeep is a little more wobbly as well. And here's everything that comes with the kit. We got 2 front springs, 2 rear springs, we got the shocks, we got a hardware kit, and we got a track bar relocation mount. This kit does not come with control arms, but don't you worry, we've pieced together other control arms. They're actually right over there. We'll get to those on a different episode. And why don't we go ahead and get started? There's all the hardware that comes with the kit. Those are cam bolts, bump stops, and then some nice hardware. And that is the hardware for the shocks. Let's go ahead and get started. So very first part of this thing, you want to open the hood, find yourself a handy dandy wipe, and go ahead and crank this open. Now I give yourself like at least a full day to get this job done. It might seem straightforward, but anytime you do these longer installs, there could be some bumps along the way. Hopefully we don't run across many of those, but first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just go ahead and open the hood and now find the top bolts holding the shocks in and just remove them. So the very first step, go ahead and identify the upper shock bolt. So just to show you from the bottom, it's that bolt right over there. Jeep has conveniently placed this hole, and Ollie is going to use a 15mm on our impact to remove. All right, on to the other side.
This is the air intake. You can easily take it off with the 2 clips in order to access that bolt.
As you can see, it's kind of blocked, and this is a 4-cylinder model, as you guys can tell. Similar process for a 6-cylinder model. And if not, you can always just use a 15mm wrench from the bottom, open-ended, and get her done. You don't actually have to remove it. You could just move it out of your way.
On to the second bolt. That is some nasty old hardware. Let's move on by lifting the Jeep. Greg's gonna help me lift the Jeep.
Help you lift the Jeep.
Help me
Help
lift
myself lift the Jeep.
Yep.
I'm gonna lift right here down the center, right on the axle tube. And I do this so that both of the tires lift up equally. Make sure you chalk your tires before you do this.
Now we're gonna support the frame rails. Oh, hi.
Hi there.
Using a 19mm, we're gonna remove the tires.
Just 5 bolts on each side. It's a lot easier with an air gun. Do this with the jack still underneath the axle. Once we take off the tires, we'll remove that and it'll just be supported by the frame.
Go ahead and spray all the areas that we are going to be working with just to make your life a little bit easier.
That should be it on this side.
We prefer to use PB Blaster, just blasting all that gunk away. Next, you're going to remove the shock by using a 13mm. You are going to have to hold the base while you take the top off.
We're using an air gun. Make sure it's all secure. Go ahead. So once you remove those 13mm bolts, you can go ahead and remove your shock. As you could tell, this one is dunzo. I mean, look at that. It barely comes out by itself. I could compress it by hand. That's a piece of junk. Now, the next step is we're gonna just go ahead and try to remove this spring without having to remove or compress it. So what you could do is just lift. And just be careful when you're doing these steps. As you know, these can be kind of dangerous.
The bump stop's already falling apart. Might as well remove it to give you more clearance.
The
Look
problem
at that
is
thing.
we have to reuse this thing, and I don't know that I'm gonna be able to.
Huh.
All right, back to plan A. We gotta figure out how to pull out this bump stop.
Now this is exactly why we said give yourself the entire day. You really never know what's gonna come up when you're doing an involved install such as a lift kit.
So my strategy, grab yourself a mallet and a flathead and pry it out. There's gonna be a nut over there, which is what you're gonna use to unscrew this and put in your spacer. Use a 15mm and go ahead and remove. As you can see, our sway bar end link is already broken. This is the factory one. So just go ahead and use a 15 mil. We're gonna replace this with a Skyjacker quick disconnect kit. And then these are tapered nuts. What that means is...
That's what it means. Now that is one big Torx.
You definitely said something different off camera.
Yeah, no bad language.
T55?
I guess it was that T55.
Holy moly. All right, back to air gun. I was just trying to be reasonable and not use an air gun, but back to the air gun we go.
Look how disgusting our spring head looked versus the Skyjacker dual rated springs. They look way nicer.
Put them exactly next to each other. So that's this end exactly there. That is way more than 2.5 inches.
Thank you, Skyjacker. Always giving you a little more.
It looks more like 6 inches to me. I don't think she got it, guys.
Now we're gonna remove all the same parts from the passenger side.
All right, friends. So usually there's a 13 millimeter nut holding this spring into place, but anytime you buy any used Jeep, it's possible that things are not in the proper position.
Nice.
You got it?
Yep. Now this is a great time to do that steering stabilizer because you have direct access. Alrighty, let's go ahead and unbox our steering stabilizer.
It's actually called a steering stabilizee.
Okay, here we go again. What language is that?
Look at that. So we went with the Black Max. I mean, just look at the difference between this and the one we're replacing. This is like you versus the person she tells you not to worry about.
Okay.
So if your cautery pin falls apart, it is not a big deal at all. You're gonna use one that comes with the kit, so don't even fret. So for this next step, I'm using a bearing puller. I will drop a link in the description below. This is to apply steady force on the joint.
The second bolt is right over here. Now, if you don't have any clearance, all you have to do is turn your steering wheel and it'll move that from your view.
So that you can now pull this bolt out and go ahead and take out your old steering stabilizer. Why don't we go ahead and compare this to the new one? Do I even have to say anything? We'll put this back on at the very end. Why don't we go ahead and put the coils in, the shocks in, and let's get the front bolted up.
So next we are going to compress the springs using the spring compressors over here. I just kind of wanted to walk you through it. So you are going to put both springs equidistant on that spring and slowly tighten both sides. Now heads up, this is dangerous. Be super careful and cautious. You're generally not supposed to use an air tool when you're doing this because it could spring back at you. A spring. So just be super careful, compress it, put it in place, and then slowly loosen it one at a time so it doesn't pop out. Let's do it now. So we already have the spring pretty far in. We're not gonna need to compress it too much, just a tad, to slip it in place.
Still like 3 inches.
It's still like 3 inches on a 2.5 inch lift, huh? Pro tip, if you jack it up, those clamps should fall off.
At this point, once it's in position, all I'm doing is loosening it one piece at a time. Luckily, once it's in place, all of the danger kind of disappears because worst case, it will spring into the Jeep itself.
And she's off.
So now we put the bump stop in. So now we're gonna put the bump stop spacer in. It's a lot easier to do this after you put the spring in. I mean, I think like initially you're supposed to take off the track bar, pitman arm, all that stuff. Use a pitman puller. But instead of doing that, we're just using spring compressors. But that being said, if I were to have put this in first, it would have made it a lot more difficult to get that spring on. What do you think, Ollie?
Oh, for sure.
So now we're gonna basically drop the suspension and slide this through a hole and manually fish it in. So a good pro tip is to find the size for this first. I think it's 15. and then we'll go from there. Oh.
Greg's getting a little creative here because we could not slip it through the space provided, so it's a little bigger than we had thought. So we weren't able to squeeze the bump stop through, so we removed the spring. Gonna install the bump stop and then go ahead and reinstall the spring. Go ahead and tighten using a 15 millimeter. And back in we go. Bump stop on passenger side. Getting that second spring compressed. Rinse and repeat with these springs. And the bump stop is Tetrised within. Now we're gonna just Tetris our bump stop all the way up and screw it in. All right, and putting that bump stop in, or whatever's left of the bump stop.
We're gonna need another one for sure. Holy fuck. Now that the hard part is done, the springs are always the hard part. As many times as we've done this job, the springs have always been the difficult part. As you can see, it looks like I've been to war. Next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna install your shock. So here's how we're gonna play it. Since we got the reservoir shocks, you're gonna put this cup bushing, you're gonna put the rubber bushing, and then the other cup. This is gonna slide in through the top, and then the reservoir portion is actually gonna sit on the back, facing the rear of the vehicle. You're gonna go ahead and use the supplied clamps to clamp that into place. Put the original hardware down the bottom as well, but be careful, do not fully tighten this until you're all the way back on the ground, so that once the full weight of the vehicle is on the shocks, you can go ahead and tighten those fully, and then we go from there. So why don't we go ahead and start?
So we're gonna go ahead and mount the reservoir on now before going down.
On a Tuesday.
It's not Tuesday,
It could be.
but it's not.
So you want to keep this loose because you might have to adjust it. It is an Allen head, so let me go ahead and get my Allen tool. This looks so cool. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
I know I said don't tighten it all the way, but I'm feeling lucky.
Let's not do that. Just to give you a close-up of what that should look like. All right.
Wow. All right, reuse your original hardware here for the bottom of the shock. Just loosely tighten this for now.
Now reusing your old bolt from the top of the shock, go ahead and screw it back on. Almost done with this side. Just loosely tighten, hand tighten those bottom two bolts, and we're in business.
Business.
Holy moly, look at that setup. All right, let's do the passenger side. The exact, I'm like, what is wrong with this guy?
We're gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. We'll catch you in 5 minutes. So next we're gonna do the sway bar and links. This is for a 2.5 to 4 inch lift kit. You basically have to assemble it so it looks like this. This is how the kit comes. It's very straightforward. You just pop these into position, and then you go ahead and pass these pins through it. You might have to kind of wiggle it around in order for it to go through perfectly, which I think we got it here. Perfect. You just go ahead and do that to both sides, and then you get these metal bushings, these sleeves. You pop them into the bushings. You can either use like a vice grip, or if you don't have one, a trick is to kind of just put it on the floor, put your weight on it, and then for the last bit you can just step on it. There you have it. You want to do that to both sides, and then we're in business. There are these two pieces here. These are what's going to hold it on the top, and then you're going to use these silver screws to hold it in place. So there's actually not a lot in terms of install for these. So let's go ahead and install this upper portion. Take with us this sway bar end piece and the other pieces of hardware to do the driver's side.
You're reusing your old hardware, so make sure to have that handy. Doing the same thing to the passenger side. The MVP of the day is our Daytona Jack.
Daytona sounds like a good time. Alrighty, now it's time for the heavy duty steering stabilizer, the Black Max. We're almost done with the front end. Actually, this has been a pretty straightforward install. First thing you got to do is you got 2 of these grommets here. We're gonna go ahead and press them in here. Now we actually don't have a vise at this location. We actually didn't. We scrapped it before we came here. Similarly, I'm gonna just step on it and see if I can press it.
Thank you, Planet Fitness.
What are you trying to say?
I've been working out.
This actually went in a lot easier than I thought it would. You're just gonna hand press it in.
As DIY as it comes, huh, ladies and
You could
gentlemen?
totally grease this to make it easier, but we're showing you what happens when you don't do that. Almost, yeah, there we go. Pretty easy.
Show me close-ups. Nice.
So next, you've got one of these apparatus. One side will fit through. So you've got 2 ends on this piece. The longer piece, the longer bar portion, will go through just like so. Again.
Oh, don't mind this.
You could use some grease, or you could just brute force it in. So we've brute forced it in. Grab yourself a lock nut, a washer, and the appropriate size nut, and screw that on. In fact, I believe I put this on the wrong direction. I just have to, I think it's washer first, and then the lock nut makes contact with the actual nut, from what all of our lovely viewers have taught me. We're gonna get that sleeve, put it into the other side.
We opted to not put the boot on. It would go over right over there. It's meant to prevent from like mud or dust and things of that sort, but it comes off anyway. So we just decided to
Leave it naked.
just tightening, and then we are wrapping up the front, you guys.
Alignment time.
Now that we're done working on the front, we're quickly gonna align using our TMR tool, and then we're gonna start on the back. Let's show you how we align it. I cannot believe we are over 2 inches towed in. Let's go ahead and make those adjustments and then move on to the rear.
2/16 to 1/16 toe in, not 2.5 inches.
Wrapped up the front. It looks absolutely insane. I can't wait to take this vehicle out, but we can't take it out till we do the rear. So let's go ahead and get the tires put on, and let's reverse in to get started on the back. Let's go. Our front is done, and that looks absolutely insane. I would compare it to the Rubicon. Definitely doesn't seem like 2 inches. What do you guys think? What? Look at this clearance. Wow. Insane. the rears with a similar process. We have the rear jacked up. Let's go ahead and remove those tires.
Next, go ahead and unbolt the bottom bolt on the shock, and then you could work on the two 13mm upper bolts. Well guys, the thing that I was dreading happened. Here's one of the rear upper shock bolts. And here's the other one. Totally sheared. Time to brainstorm what I'm gonna do. Alrighty guys, I bought some Milwaukee Cobalt heads. Today's day 2. I'm gonna try to tap out that rear upper shock bolt. What I ended up doing is I actually drilled a hole next to it. I'm gonna just put a whole new bolt through it. I don't think I'm gonna be able to salvage that original bolt. As long as it holds it securely, I don't really care. So let's continue. Hopefully we get this job done today. But in the meantime, I mean, look at this front. This is insanity. I think it's lifted this high because it's a 4-cylinder and doesn't have much weighing it down. But just look at those shocks. That looks so pretty. Finally got the other side to an acceptable point. I just put a hole in the rear frame. Now we're gonna rinse and repeat on this side. I've already removed that lower shock bolt. I have the two 13mm ones on the top, which I hope come out straightforward. Let's see. I have some of the best news to report to everyone. Look at those, they came out intact. What I did was I used a double extension and I actually used the impact gun. Because the last side I broke it by hand, but the impact gun I feel like does a better job of taking things out. So I just put it on the medium setting and got them out. Let's continue. We're gonna remove the track bar using a T55 on the axle side. So as you can see, it's gonna be kind of hard to get to this because of the gas tank. So before I do that, I'm gonna just disconnect these rear sway bar end links. And then I'm gonna lower the entire axle so that I get a little bit more clearance. Just make sure you put a jack stand on the bottom and support your axle, because when you remove these, they might fall down. And now we get to lower the axle. It's about as far as it'll go. Let's see if we could reach our track bar bolt. So we have a little bit better access. Here's the T55. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use the handle off of my jack as a breaker bar, because I don't have a 1/2-inch drive T55. All I got is this 3/8. And so I'm gonna make it work. So we're gonna do this. Make sure it seats beautifully, because you don't want this to ruin your day. And then go ahead and slide. And there's your makeshift breaker bar. See, the problem is as you take this out, it's gonna wanna back out. The gas tank really gets in your way here. All right, still haven't removed the bolt, but let's see if we have enough slack to take those out, and we do. We're gonna remove this. Let's do the same thing to the other side. Next up, we're gonna remove that bump stop holder. This is a 15mm. Now let's see if we have more clearance for that T55. Now that we've removed that track bar bolt, we're gonna go ahead and attach this adapter that comes with the kit. Now the purpose of this adapter is so that the track bar now sits a little bit higher, just so that it could center the axle. Now this step does require drilling, and what you're gonna do is you're basically gonna secure this in place using the supplied hardware, and then you're gonna tap the center and drill this out with a 1/2-inch drill bit, and then secure this back into place, and then we can continue by reinstalling the springs and shocks. So why don't we go ahead and get started. So you're gonna place this. This is the hardware. You're gonna put this crush sleeve on the inside. Wish I had 3 hands. Would be really nice in this scenario. And then let's go ahead and punch out that hole. Now that you have your bracket in place, go ahead and mark the center and tap. We're gonna start with a small drill bit and work our way up to 1/2 inch. The most important thing is to get your pilot hold perfect. So go ahead and get it into your tap. I'm using the smallest bit I could find. Now we're gonna upsize. We're gonna go 1 size larger, and then we'll go to 1/2. So this is 3/8. Let's see if our bolt, this massive bolt, fits. And it does. So what we're gonna do is just give that a quick spray so that it doesn't rust, and we're gonna attach our bracket. Alrighty, so bracket time. This is gonna be the fun part. You're gonna go ahead and install the bolt through that hole that you just created. This is the fine thread bolt in the kit. So as you can see, I've already put a dab of paint over it, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna put this guy through. Now that your bottom bolt is in, go ahead and put this one back in. And don't forget that crush sleeve. This is gonna get threaded in from the other side. And it goes right in. And then go ahead and put your nut that came with the kit on the back of this. It is a little bit difficult to tighten because it's not like a flag nut like the original. So you just have to fish something long like a flathead screwdriver or something from the rear. You're gonna reuse the original hardware for the top, for the actual track bar. Alrighty, everything's installed. Let's put in the springs. I'm just curious, I wonder if I could fit it without any compressors. Let's see. So the answer was no. You need spring compressors with the 2.5 inch.
We have put the upper shock bolts, and now we're just gonna jack it up from the axle in order to line up the bottom bolt, and we're in business. And here we go. The best part of installing a lift kit is getting the tires slapped back on and calling it a day and going for that test drive.
Did you just say lift kit?
No, I said kit. What are you thinking of?
There's only one other part to this, and those are the cam bolts that come with it. But instead, we're gonna just drop the transfer case as I mentioned. We'll do that once we get this thing back on its tires. So once you put the vehicle back on the ground, double check every single bolt that you touched, retighten everything to torque spec. All of the torques are in the instructions. The next thing we're gonna do is...
The last thing we're gonna do is...
we are gonna install a transfer case drop kit, also by Skyjacker. This is specifically designed for their 2.5 inch lift. And then we're gonna take the Jeep out of the garage and show you how it drives. I guess I have to clean up a little first.
Let's make some room.
A lot of different tools during these installs. That's what you're seeing here on the table. So moving on to the transfer case drop kit, all you're gonna do is locate the 6 bolts holding in your transfer case skid plate, and you're gonna slightly loosen one side, and you're gonna fully take out the other 3. Now I put a jack supporting the transmission so that it doesn't come falling down. All you have to do is remove them just enough so that it comes out. Why don't we get started? Just gonna use a little bit of degreaser. This is very notorious. Jeeps in the rust belt, they very notoriously rust in this area. Luckily for us, ours is not from the Rust Belt. It is straight from Tijuana, Jalisco. So now you're gonna need longer bolts. The kit comes with these nice bolts. It also luckily comes with some thread locker. You're gonna go ahead and squeeze this thread locker out and get some on the threads. Tough crowd today. All right, next, go ahead and grab your slab. This only goes in one way, as you notice. The front 2 holes are closer to one another. So you can kind of shimmy this down a little bit to fit. In fact, I have a jack over there kind of supporting the back. It is fighting me. So we took this thing for a quick spin and we did a quick shakedown run. It's always a good idea to do that and then retighten all of your nuts and bolts. So the very next thing I want to let you know is it drives really smooth compared to before. I mean, you know, the original suspension was probably, you know, worn out 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So just changing that in and of itself has been excellent. Now, We do have some other shocks. We have done many other lift kits before, so we have a good understanding of how these vehicles are supposed to drive. We're gonna put about 1,000 miles on them, and then we're gonna let you know exactly what we think of this lift kit. We're also hoping to disconnect those sway bar end links and show you how it does off-road. Hopefully down the line, hopefully in the next month or so. We do have a busy couple of weeks, but we're gonna try our best to get that content out to you. That's kind of my way of asking my wife, like, hey, can we go off-roading? But it is what it is. So far, the tires, the road manners of the tires has been excellent. We have put about 500 miles on them, and we love them. So thank you, Kunadi Tires, for these excellent tires, and we will continue to update you guys on how they are.
That looks insane. That is a
Noticeable. Pluto and Mars were once friends.
And it's a noticeable difference, ladies and gentlemen. Check it out.
It's funny, this was the little white Jeep, but it looks huge next to the LJ. I mean, here's the thing. It's the 4-cylinder Wrangler, so the front is sitting a little bit higher than we would expect. But that's fine, because that means that we'll probably not have as bad driveline vibrations. We did the 2-inch... We did the transfer case drop. These planes would allow. We did the transfer case drop and then had absolutely no issues flying this plane above.
When you buy a Jeep, it usually comes with a plane.
At least 2.
So when you film, they just want to show their presence.
So we put this thing into 4 low, 4 high, and we're able to go and engage without any issues. So we're not going to actually do the transfer case bracket handle drop situation. I hate doing that part, and you know what? I found that if you don't do 4-inch lifts, you're pretty much in the clear. This is a 2.5, and in fact, you know, it is what it is. Lucky for us, we don't have to do it, but if you do have to do it, it's honestly just a couple of bolts. It's just at the end of this install and filming all of this, we are pretty tired and we're ready to jump into the pool.
It's not that warm, but thank you for coming along for the ride. If you're interested in the same lift that we just installed, we will drop the link before, and all of the endless tools you are going to need. You saw all our tools, we'll have it in our Amazon shop below. Make sure to check us out on Instagram and TikTok and all the goodies. Hit that subscribe button and don't miss the next one.
Thanks.
You're welcome.